Good morning. The committee will come to order. I want to welcome everyone this morning as we gather to examine two pieces of legislation related to U.S. affiliated islands. This is S-2182, the Bikini Resettlement and Relocation Act, and S-2325, the Northern Marianas Island U.S. Workforce Act. So walking in this morning, a little bit cool outside, so we'll go to the South Pacific this morning. To address the legacy of U.S. nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands, Congress has provided $110 million to the people of Bikini for the rehabilitation and resettlement of Bikini Atoll via appropriations, and an additional $75 million through the Compact of Free Association with the Marshall Islands. The trust fund for the resettlement of the people of Bikini reached a high of $129 million back in 2000. Today, its market value is approximately $57 million. I introduced S-2182 in response to the Department of Interior's recent determination that it does not have statutory authority to conduct financial oversight of the trust fund. This determination came down just in November. Well, annual drawdowns from the trust fund have historically ranged from $5 to $10 million. Over $15.7 million has already been withdrawn in FY 2018. Press reports detailed an immediate $11 million drawdown from the trust fund, nearly 20% of its value at the time, by the KBE Local Government Council after the department's announcement then in November. We've heard reports of large sums being spent on things such as an airplane, 2 landing craft, an elaborate function in Hawaii, cash payments to households on Egypt and Kili in the name of disaster relief, but without any damage assessments being conducted. S-2182 provides the Secretary of the Interior with statutory authority to disapprove of trust fund withdrawals until a resettlement plan for Bikini has been submitted to Congress. It also caps the amount that can be withdrawn on an annual basis at 5% of the trust fund's market value until the resettlement plan has been submitted. Now, I need you all to know that I am very sensitive to the notion that Washington, D.C. should not dictate local decisions. Alaskans have dealt with that mentality since we were a territory. I have always found it far more useful to hear from the duly elected representatives on community needs. But I'm also mindful that the trust fund was established for the people of Bikini, with its statutory purpose being the rehabilitation and resettlement of Bikini Atoll. As a result of the United States nuclear testing, our government has a responsibility to the Bikini people. Establishing the trust fund with U.S. taxpayer dollars was part of that responsibility, and ensuring that the trust fund is utilized for the people of Bikini in a manner that is consistent with its intent and statutory purpose is also our responsibility. With this hearing, I hope to gain a better understanding from our witnesses as to the rationale and the legal analysis behind the department's interpretation of its role, and I also want to learn how the money that has been withdrawn from the trust fund is being utilized per Congress's intent. Now, our second piece of legislation this morning, S-2325, seeks to address the Northern Mariana Islands foreign labor concerns as we each reach the end of the transition period that was established by Congress. This bill was developed by a bipartisan, bicameral working group that I formed last year. That group includes 2 of our witnesses today, Congressman Sablan, we thank you, and Governor Torres, as well as staff from our committee, the House Natural Resources Committee, and the House and Senate Judiciary Committees. So we appreciate the good work that many have put into getting us to where we are today. S-2325 extends the transition period to 2029. It further sets a numerical cap of 13,000 CW permits starting in FY 2019, with annual decreases of 500 permits for the remainder of the transition period. Our goal is to ensure that U.S. workers in the CNMI are not at a competitive disadvantage compared to foreign labor. And to that end, our legislation requires a U.S. Department of Labor certification on foreign worker needs and requires that the employer pay a CW worker the highest prevailing wage. The bill also creates a new CW3 permit category for long-term foreign workers who have been working in the CNMI under a CW permit since 2014. And it gives the Secretary of Homeland Security the authority to revoke an issued permit if it's not being used or if the employer has violated federal labor laws. Now, the timing of this legislation is significant as we are only a few weeks away from the submission of the next round of CW permit applications. Notably, the Department of Homeland Security has announced a significant reduction in the number of CW permits available in FY19, which is expected to result in the denial of thousands of applications. While I do believe that we have a good product in front of us, I welcome suggestions on how we might be able to improve it. I do want to emphasize, however, that while I'm willing to support extending the transition period, I remain committed to the intent of the transition, which is to increase the number of U.S. workers in the CNMI economy while reducing the dependence on foreign labor. So I look forward to hearing from our witnesses on these two bills. I thank many of you for coming a long distance today. I turn now to Senator Cantwell for her comments and remarks.